What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another backyard talk. In today's video, I wanted to kind of talk about a book that I just finished up reading called A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Not a paid plug, obviously, just a book that I finished reading recently that I think was very impactful for me, and had a lot of different topics within the book that I think can relate to just modern life. The book was written based on events that happened during World War II, and this psychiatrist who was put in a Nazi concentration camp and moved from a couple different camps back during World War II. And the book is just extremely interesting. I mean, I think that nowadays, myself included, but especially just a lot of people in general, kind of get caught up in kind of like, I guess, like the woe is me kind of mentality sometimes, where you can kind of focus on some things that maybe aren't going your way, or focus on something negative at work, or focus on something negative maybe at home. And in reality, I mean, if you do read this book, and actually if you have read this book, hit the comments if you haven't, but I would definitely recommend reading it. The book really is like a firsthand recount and explanation of kind of what happened during Victor's experience in the concentration camps. And some of the stories that are in the book are just almost so unbelievable. So unbelievable that it puts into perspective really just how good we have it today, how good we have it, in America, how good, just I guess people have it in general nowadays in comparison, and also how quickly things can change, and just the perspectives given in the book are just fascinating. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was that multiple times in the book, Victor gives examples of people that basically choose kind of one of two paths, that even in a Nazi concentration camp, one of those death camps in World War II, some people were choosing, to either basically just, give up and say that, their life didn't have any meaning, and that they had no reason to kind of fight and kind of keep going, and nothing to live for. And those people often died first or got sick, and, didn't really have any kind of will to keep going. And then the other people found, even if it was something small, found a will to keep going, found a will to live, found a reason why that they wanted to keep going. In the case of Victor, who wrote the book, he gave an example that one of the things that kept him going, apparently, right when he arrived to Auschwitz, they took away all of their possessions, and part of what was in his possession was a book that he had been working on, and it was his, to that point, his career's life's work was writing this manuscript, and it was completely destroyed when he entered Auschwitz. So one of the things that kind of gave Victor kind of that internal drive and that internal kind of push to kind of keep going was rewriting and republishing that book, that memoir, that manuscript. So during his time there, he'd actually try to get scraps of paper and rewrite it in his head, and just that kind of daily kind of practice of knowing that he still had something to get out of his life was, I think, a big factor that kept him going. Something else that he mentions from his story personally was that he also pictured himself while he was in a death camp, which I think is pretty unbelievable. I'm not sure that I would have that same strength. I'm not sure anybody kind of not in that position can say, whether they would or wouldn't have that strength. But he said that while he was going through it, he actually pictured himself giving college talks on the experience of going through the Auschwitz camp and through the Nazi concentration camp, which I think is such a mind-blowing kind of perspective to take, that while he was going through such a horrendous time, watching people get gassed and murdered, that he still had the sense of, I guess, wonder and sense of future in his life, where he was like, okay, I'm going to get through this, and one day I'm going to explain to people about my experience. And I think that is just so powerful, and it's just fascinating, really. So something else that he mentions in the book is that a lot of the people that were in the concentration camps obviously died from the gas chambers and just being kind of just murdered outright, but other people died of typhus and other kind of diseases. And he said that the same thing kind of mentally applied to the people who got sick, where if they thought that they had some reason to live, a family member to go see, a life goal to still accomplish, that they could see past what their current experience was, that those people had a better chance at surviving and having their immune system fight the disease and actually kind of being okay, versus the people that totally gave up. So I thought that was a really powerful story and powerful aspect of the book. Something else that I read that is in the book that I also found I guess just kind of astonishing, and it's really, I guess, an example of really just how blessed we are now, and just kind of, even like our worst day here in 2025 in America is 10,000 times better than what some people have had to deal with in this life and on earth at different periods in history. And one of the examples that has like just stuck in my mind for whatever reason was Victor in the book. It's in two parts, the book also. The first part of the book, Man's Search for Meaning, is Victor's like own personal account of like his experience going through Auschwitz and going through the concentration camps. Part two is kind of his analysis of kind of what happens to someone psychologically before they go through it, as they're going through it, when they're coming out. Very, very interesting to kind of just see both sides of it. But one thing that I read in the book that was just, again, astonishing was that there was a story in there of prisoners at Auschwitz who used to have to empty like the latrines and empty the bunkhouses of all of like the wastewater and the sewage and stuff like that. And they'd have to push wheelbarrows full of sewage, to get them out of the facilities. And the roads weren't like flat, perfectly paved roads. So I don't want to imagine, but you could imagine pushing a wheelbarrow full of, excrement, full of shit, and hitting a pothole and having that like stuff like hit you in the face, and like having to just keep going. Because in the book he mentions that the prisoners that wouldn't just keep going, that would try to like wipe it off, or that reacted basically in any sort of way, would end up getting beat by the Nazis. So again, just a insane perspective that, you'd have to literally be in a death camp pushing, feces and pushing excrement, have that somehow get on your skin or get on you in any kind of way, and then to not be able to react to that, and to just have to like keep pushing. I mean, that, besides obviously everything else that was happening there, the gas chambers and, the beatings and the murder that was happening there, I mean, even just that alone, the psychological factors there is just unimaginable, right? But there were still people there that found a reason to smile, found ways to make jokes, found ways to connect to what their purpose was going to be after, when they got out, having hopes that they were going to make it out of that situation and make it out alive. And it's just a fascinating, fascinating story. So if you haven't read the book, Man's Search for Meaning, I would highly, highly recommend it. And I guess to kind of wrap up my overall general point of this video is that, it's all perspective. I think everything in life is perspective. Someone can be living, somewhere, let's say like on a hot climate, and wish that they were out, in the cold, somewhere where there was some mountains or some snow. Vice versa, someone could be out in Aspen, where it's snowing right now, I'm sure, and wishing they were on a Florida beach, right? I mean, it's all about perspective. And I think it's all about coming to terms with the idea that in reality, it could always be worse, and to really, really choose actively and consciously, what side are you going to pick? Are you going to go down the road or go down the side of there is no hope, there is no future, I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, I don't want to move forward, when something bad happens, I'm just going to give up? Or are you going to pick the other side, where even in the worst of worst situations and worst of worst circumstances, that you can still picture a future, still have that imagination, still hold on to previous positive past memories, and still believe that in the future you will still accomplish something and your life will get better? And I think the book is just a fantastic example of really holding on to the positive, and what the difference is in really extreme life situations. So I think that's it for today's little backyard talk. Again, if you've read the book, please hit the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts about it. And if you haven't read the book, highly recommend reading it. One of the best books I've read over the last year. So with that, I think that's it for today's backyard talk. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.